Hello, and welcome to Mondays with Maria Gould. Thanks for joining me today. Today is October the 6th, 2025, and we are on episode 31 already. So today, the topic is awakening your spiritual gifts. So let's dive into this. What are our spiritual gifts? How do we awaken them? Now, the first thing I'd like to cover is actually what are the gifts? So our spiritual gifts are 4 different categories. Now, of course, there can be a lot of different subcategories in this whole genre, but these are the 4 main spiritual gifts. The first one is empath, being an empath. Now, if you've never heard of that word before, it just means that you can have a tendency to feel what other people feel. So if you are feeling good and you go into a place that you can sense that there was maybe an argument or something doesn't quite feel right, the energy is really intense, you might be an empath. Somebody that can sense when others are upset or something's bothering them, even though they might act like nothing is amiss. So an empath has that instinct of how to really sense a deeper meaning with people. And this is one of the first spiritual gifts to awaken. Now, another spiritual gift that we can acquire and learn to have a lot more of is what's called clairvoyance. Clairvoyance is the ability to actually perceive energy fields that the naked eye doesn't always see. So this might be seeing in our mind's eye or sometimes with our physical eyes. It depends how clairvoyant you are. The energy around people, so their auric field, or you might see an angel or a beloved one that has crossed over behind them. You might see spirits that walk around. You might see the energy of the trees or different things like this. You might see fairies, right? I know some of the people that listen to this podcast they see the elementals. So all of these energies can, if you're not born with them, can be awakened. Now, we are all born with these gifts, but unfortunately, because they're not nurtured, because they're not talked about and shared and practiced, we can shut these down at really early ages. And we'll get into that in a moment. Now, clairvoyance also can come with clairaudience. Now, this can be the third gift that opens. Clairaudience is the ability to hear the voice of God, the voice of the Creator, angels, loved ones that have crossed over, sometimes even the frequency of different things. As this opens up, this really opens up your world to hearing frequencies that sometimes aren't heard by the human ear. As my clairaudience opened up, I could actually hear when LED lights were turned on, and they have a very high-pitched frequency. And even I have infrared lights that I use on my body sometimes, and I can hear the frequencies of those lights as they go through different ranges of vibration. So there's different hertz that the lights go through, and as they go up, I actually do hear those changes in frequency. So if you have any of those abilities, your clairaudience is starting to open. Now, the fourth spiritual gift to awaken is called the prophetic knowing, or just spiritual knowing. This is when we just know something about somebody. We didn't see it in a vision. We didn't hear it as an audible voice. It is just a knowing that kind of pops into your head instantaneously. Now, many people have this gift when somebody is calling us or texting us and we know who it is, even without call display. Okay, we cheat in this day and age and look at call display rather than learning to trust our intuition, learning to follow those hints that our intuitive self gives us. So those 4 gifts a lot of times we're born with at least one. So you might resonate with being an empath, right? If you do, you want to make sure you tune in to October 20th, the podcast where I will have a guest on, Tiffany Chinji, and we will share about our journeys of realizing that we were empaths and how much that has changed our world so that we can be in this world in an easier way. So we'll talk about our difficulties with that, as well as the gifts that can bring. So the clairvoyance, the clairaudience, the prophetic knowing, all of these with the empathic gifts start to open the more that you use them. So how do we awaken them? I'm going to go over some tips about this. The number one thing is when you connect with a spiritual energy of unconditional love. I call that creator of all that is, God, source. When we connect with this unconditionally loving energy, the energy that makes up everything in our universe, right? This is the energy before it becomes atoms or molecules, before it becomes elements that make physical things in our material world. It is actually pure life force energy. So when we connect with this consciousness and start to tap into it and want to have more of a connection with this life force energy that is in all things, this starts to open our gifts. We start to become quieter in our own thoughts, and we start to explore our empathic gifts, our gifts of clairvoyance, clairaudience, knowing. Now, I would say that is one of the very first things that you want to practice to open your spiritual gifts is practice your connection with God, with Creator, right? If you have a spiritual practice, if you have a religion, these gifts sometimes awaken in people because of that deep faith. So as long as your religion doesn't tell you that these gifts are wrong or bad and that you shouldn't have them, then these will naturally start to open more and more. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about imagination. As a child, you probably had imaginary friends. You probably had what your parents would call, just an active imagination. When you would talk about, I saw Grandma today, even though Grandma had passed on a couple of years ago. I saw a fairy in the forest, or I saw an angel talk to me. Now, depending on how that was handled by your caregivers, that will either open your gifts or shut them down. Now, unfortunately, many of us are shut down because our caregivers tell us, it's just your imagination. And they might be okay with it for a while, but then as you grow up, they start to kind of talk as if it's not right, as if it's not acceptable. So that social energy that is around it being unacceptable, we tend to shut our gifts down. So if you've ever had that experience as a child, this can block our gifts from awakening. A big thing to realize that as you connect with the energy of creation, this is how the energy communicates with you. It communicates with everyone in this way. It's not imaginary that great scientists and great inventors see in their mind's eye, in their imagination first, before they create it, right? So somebody that I was watching a NASA scientist, and he had to try and figure out a way on, I forget what the actual problem was that he was looking at, but he kept asking and pondering and just wondering how to do this, how to do this. And one night he was drifting off to sleep and kind of really obsessing about how to solve this great problem. And in his waking moments, he was shown huge, almost like his whole mind lays out the blueprints that will solve the problem. And his invention basically came through his creative part of his mind, his imagination. Before we create anything in this world, in this reality, we imagine it in our mind's eye first before we create it. Same with the Wright brothers. Before they could fly a plane, they had to imagine it, right? So we have to let go of sort of this childhood wrongness about imagination. It isn't. What if it isn't imaginary that you see fairies? It's just maybe that frequency isn't seen by everyone with their naked eye, but that doesn't mean it isn't real, right? Crinoline photography. In other newsletters, I've talked about crinoline photography and how it actually can take a picture of the energetic field around things. So we now have technology that can start to see the energy and life force of different things. Who's to say that we can't take a picture if somebody with psychic abilities or clairvoyance sees a spirit around somebody? Who knows? Maybe that crinoline photography can catch that. And actually, with our high-powered cameras on our phones now, we can catch these images of light with our phones sometimes. The light of the phone will catch it, and the camera speed of the phone will catch it more than our naked eye will. I teach a class called Building Your Intuition. It's a theta healing class for children all the way up through to adult children that want to just have fun and open their psychic gifts. It's for children of all ages, starting from 7 up. And it is an amazing 4-day experience where you really get to open up your abilities. And you get it in that safe way where everyone is opening their abilities and practicing their abilities. And it's safe and nobody poo-poos it and nobody shames you about it. It's fun. It brings out the child in everybody that takes that class. But the big thing that we share is, what if it's not imagination in the negative sense that we were taught as a child? Maybe it's just that we can perceive energies and beings that don't have physical form. How cool is that? So step 2 is really starting to clear out those negative connotations around the idea of imagination. Letting that go, seeing the gifts and inspiration that comes from allowing that creative life force to create through your imagination, to show you what is possible, right? So step number 3 to opening your gifts, in my opinion, is discernment. Discernment. If we don't have discernment of what an energy of a spirit is compared to that of an angel, we might get confused. If we aren't sure if we are sensing someone else's emotions versus our own emotions, we can get confused. So as your intuitive gifts, as your 4 spiritual gifts start to open, it is important to have that feedback from others that have gifts so that you can learn that discernment. It helps with feeling more guided. It helps with feeling less confused, and sometimes it can be overwhelming to have your gifts start to open and you aren't sure what it is and what it means. When my gifts first started to really open, it usually happens for a lot of people right around puberty, right? And I started to feel things that were overwhelming, and that kind of led down a path of being diagnosed with some mental health issues. But was it really? Was it really? Or was it part of my gifts awakening? As I look back in my journey of healing, I truly see it as my gifts were awakening, and I didn't have that guidance. I didn't have somebody with that experience about what was going on for me to guide me and say, you know what, it's okay. You aren't crazy. You actually are just seeing and feeling things that very deeply. And that's a good thing. That gives you a compassionate heart. But I needed to learn that discernment. I needed to understand what was mine, what wasn't mine. Right? So the fourth thing to be aware of to open your gifts is practicing it in that safe space with others. And to have that group of like-minded individuals that can validate what you're experiencing. They see it too. They perceive it too. Nothing lights up your soul more than knowing that you're not alone. It is hardwired into our subconscious to actually want to fit in, right? It's so built into our DNA. It's a tribal instinct that our survival as children is fitting into our family. So we kind of copy and mimic what they do and what they say and how they are to get their acceptance. That's how we're hardwired. So when we feel like our gifts are starting to open, sometimes the medical field might not know what's happening to you. And they might want to label you with different things that possibly that could be a part of the story, but is it the full story? Right? My full story when I was going through what the medical field classified as sort of clinical depression and bipolar was really the start of my awakening. It was the start of me figuring out many aspects of my life, many aspects. It was the aspect of my blood sugars were a little bit crazy. I was prepubescent, so of course my hormones were contributing to that up and down emotional state. But the poor eating didn't help that, right? So I can attest that there were physical things I needed to address to help stabilize my mental health, okay? But it was also a deep time where I went into myself. I learned that it was okay to feel deeply, that it was okay to look at my emotions and not just cover them up. And it truly was, every step of the journey was me learning how to go within and connect with that spirit inside of me. So I truly see that whole journey that was labeled mental health as the stepping stone for my awakening, as the stepping stone of awakening to my gifts. Now, when I teach Theta Healing classes, we teach a lot of these things, and it offers such a safe space to connect with the energy of creation, to open up your spiritual gifts. It was just last weekend that I shared with two beautiful souls the basic DNA Theta Healing class. And that's the first class that we teach that is really an introduction to all of the whole modality. And when these souls share, and they are so gifted when they share what they're feeling in reading a person, in what they see when we intuitively scan inside the body, their intuition is bang on, like your gifts are so hardwired into you. And when you connect to the energy of creation, they just start to flow through you. It's like a dam has broken and you get to be your full self. Nothing is more freeing than that, right? Nothing is so amazing as being your full self. And I see that as a huge gift of the Theta Healing classes, is you get to be your full psychic, spiritual self with others that are just like you. And you get to look deeply and connect more fully to who you really are, to pull off the layers that no longer serve you in beliefs and programs that we were taught as children and by our genetic line and society and other lifetimes. We get to clear all that off so we can see that we are truly a part of creation. That all of those things are not who we are, but just cover who we are. And it's our spiritual gifts that really start to awaken. And we realize that we are so much more than we've ever been taught. We are not just a body. We truly are the mind of God that's expressed here. You are unlimited. But it's hard to know that when we have all of these programs in our mind that maybe we adopted them as a child in the womb. I adopted a lot of these beliefs of I'm not good enough, who am I, I'm a mistake. I had all of these beliefs from the womb, from my mother. And not understanding that those thoughts and ideas about who I was weren't true at all. And I needed to connect with that energy of unconditional love of the Creator to start to learn the truth about myself. So I encourage you to connect however it feels right for you. If it is through a religion, connect through a religion to that energy of God. If it is your own practice, connect with that energy of God. God is always listening to every thought and every prayer you have. And it's only our beliefs and our ideas that make us believe we're separate. We aren't separate. We've never been separate. So if you would love to meet other like-minded souls, if you would like some support in clearing out these learned programs, I'm here for you. If you're intrigued in joining a class, I will have classes coming up in 2026. I'm waiting for a few more pieces to kind of reveal themselves before I make next year's schedule. But once those are in place, you can keep checking my website for upcoming classes. And yeah, I encourage you, if you're listening to these podcasts and they kind of light something in your heart, then I encourage you to join us. Connect with Creator, connect with your gifts. Unleash your spiritual gifts. It is time. The world is waiting for you. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you. I love and appreciate each of you that take the time to listen to this. And please share it. Please invite people to the newsletter on my website at mariagould.com. You can sign at the top of the website. Just sign up for my free newsletter where you get these podcasts in the newsletter, little articles. So I hope it's brought value to your day and inspired you to connect to Creator and connect with that spiritual community that is out there. They're waiting for you. Much love. Have a beautiful day.